Hello everyone. So today's our topics is all about physical change and our objective for today is you have to identify the physical changes that matters undergo. So on my first slide, I have here video link where you can get more information about our today's topic. Or you can just simply read your book and Understanding Life Through Science 4 on pages 42, 44. So, I have here a picture of SpongeBob and Patrick. Do you know them? Would you like to describe them? Describe their size, color, shape, and texture. Okay, so let's start with SpongeBob first. So SpongeBob is color yellow. His size is smaller than Patrick. His shape is square. And I think his texture is rough. While Patrick, his size is bigger than SpongeBob. His color is yellow and the shape is star. And I think his texture is rough. Nice try. So let's move on. So when we say physical change, the change that affects one or more physical properties and is a change from one form to another. During a physical change, the shape, size, and appearance of an object may be altered. The chemical makeup of the substance is not changed. So when we say physical change, even though it change in shape, it change in size, or its appearance, it will never become a different substance. Or it will never form a new substance or a new product or object. So here are some things or some changes that we can see in an object. So it can be bent, pressed, cut, and hammered. So as you can see here in this picture, the fork bent and it changes its shape. Okay, that's right. While on this next picture, which is the orange was being pressed, the shape of the orange become differ also. Same thing with this onion. While being cut, the shape and the size of the onion becomes different. Also, with also here with the nail, after being hammered, the size of the nail becomes different. So, on my next picture is I have here a hot and a cold water. So, even though the temperature of this object, which is the water, becomes different, it still remains, or the substance remains. The hot water does the hot water become chocolate after being cooled? No, right? So it still remains water. It's just it differs from its temperature. And that is a physical change also. While on this next picture, we have here a carrot and after being chopped or cut, the shape and the size of these carrots become different. Does these carrots become an apple after being chopped? No. So there are the changes in size and in shape only. Next is we have here a glass and a broken glass. After being hit, does this glass become a bottle? No, right? It still remains as a glass, but a broken glass. While on this next picture, I have here salt. Then after being put into the glass, it dissolved. But does this salt become sugar after being put into this water or after it dissolve? No, right? It's still salt. Okay, so those are some examples of physical changes. So another one is I have here a bond paper. So after crumple it, the shape of the bond paper becomes different or change. And we can see the physical changes here, which is the shape of the paper. So there are changes that we can see from solid, liquid, and gas also. So let's see what are those. So when a solid turns into liquid, we can call it as melting. When a liquid turns into gas, it is evaporation. When a gas turns to liquid, it is condensation. And when the liquid turns to solid, it is a freezing. Solid when solid turns to gas, it is sublimation. And when the gas turns to solid, it is deposition. So let's see what are some example of those. So solid to liquid or melting. So this ice is a solid one. Okay? So after being put or hit by the temperature, it becomes liquid or it turns into melt, right? So now can you give me your own example of melting? Okay. So next, let's have liquid to gas or evaporation. So this casserole has a water inside. Then after being put by the heat or temperature, you can see the smoke coming out from it, right? And this smoke is a gas. That's why we can call this one as an evaporation, where the liquid inside this casserole becomes or turns into gas. Can you give me your own example of evaporation? Okay. So now, let's go from gas to liquid, or we can call it as condensation. So I put a bottle inside the freezer. And after that, when I put it out, I saw some smoke coming out from the bottle. And those smoke were the gas. And after being hit with the temperature or the heat the heat, we can see the liquid outside. Okay? Because the heat outside hit or transfer inside the bottle. That's why it turns into a liquid. Now, can you give me your own example of condensation? Okay, so now let's turn into a solid from liquid to a solid, or we can say it is freezing. Okay, so this ice, before it become an ice, it is a water. Then after being put into the refrigerator, it turns into ice, which is a solid. Now, can you give me your own example of a freezing? Okay. So by the way, why it is become solid? Because the coldness or the cold temperature inside the freezer hit the water or turns or go inside the water that makes the water freeze. So next is we have solid to gas or sublimation. So on my example, I have here a dry ice. And a dry ice is a solid. Then, after being hit again by the heat of temperature, it turns into a gas. As you can see, these are the gases. Now, can you give me your own example of sublimation aside from dried ice? Okay, so now let's go with the gas to solid or deposition. So on my example, I have here a crystal ice. Okay, so a crystal ice was formed when the the gas or the temperature below on the ground is um too cold. Okay, and then if there is a rain. Okay, so for example, you just imagine you were in the you were at the top or in the higher area, okay, or in the colder area. For example, you were in the Alaska. Okay, so for example, it rains in Alaska, and then the temperature in the ground or below is too cold. Now there are some evaporation, right? And those gas become solid and become more crystallized. Okay? That's why it form a crystal. Those evaporated water. Okay? So those gases become a crystal or an ice because the temperature below the ground is too cold. That's why it becomes a crystal. So now can you give me your own example of deposition? Okay. So now you have all known the different changes that may comes into a material, especially the physical change that happened to a material. So that's it for today. I hope you learned something. Thank you everyone.